So, what a delight to be here with you, Coach, and with you, Mike. I mean, this is really an extraordinary event. You were featured on the cover of Mindful magazine not long ago. You're well known, although people may not know the details or understand them exactly right, for actually collaborating to bring greater awareness, greater focus, greater mindfulness, a certain, may I say, inner discipline to the actual training and execution of what it takes to play football at that NFL level. And so I think everybody would be really interested in hearing how you came to this and how much passion you have around it, and what the synergies are between the two of you and how that translates into the actual training of the team to go out there and do what it needs to do on any given weekend.
Well, you know, let me just start with how we met, which I think will set this up a bit. Is like most introductions and relationships, it happened from a mutual friend that said, I think you two would really enjoy meeting each other. So we sat down, we had dinner, and we had a great conversation. And at the end of the conversation, he said, why don't you come up and see what we're doing at the Seattle Seahawks? And at that point, I was like, this might come off wrong, but I was disenfranchised with pro sport. It was a particular phase in my life, in my professional life, where it was like, okay, I was really attracted to high risk and very dangerous environments. And
football, Mike, what are you talking about?
That's right, it is football. And so I came up, and it was completely different than any other professional franchise I'd ever been around. And this is why it was different, is that I would ask people, what's different here? Because it feels different. And they say, I don't know what it is. This is the coaches. I don't know what it is in this organization, but I can just be me. And that's where it started, is that he's created this atmosphere to understand who people are so that they can be themselves. And I think that that's where this relationship feels organic and natural because of that tone.
You might wonder, you know, like, where does the connection with mindfulness come from? Well, when you've competed for as many years, I don't know, it's like 40 years of coaching a game in particular, we have, and being dedicated to being the best you can figure out how to be, it takes you to places that draws you into having to study and investigate and research and trial and error your way to figuring out how to help people perform at a really high level. So it's been a natural process for me. I mean, this isn't something that we just started. This is something that evolved after years and years and years of trying to help individuals and teams and groups and you know, cultures and all come together in an extraordinary fashion. And the only way that I've found to do that is to draw the best out of the people and figure out how to reach them in a way that would allow them to generate their best. Well, you can't be at your best if you're not totally in the moment and focused and at that point where you have your awareness heightened. Otherwise, you're something less than yourself. And so that's been an ongoing, long-time pursuit. And then when I finally run into people that can help me understand the craziness that goes through my head, I have to latch on. And so Michael was one of those guys. So that's how we've connected and really had a wonderful number of years.
Yeah, that's been great.
Well, that's very beautiful. So you know, this is this is the NFL. And yet, I heard you say that when it comes right down to it, what you're actually training people in is, in a certain way, is like love. Love of the game, love of each other, love of the possibilities, love of being part of a larger whole, love of, in some sense, giving an audience something that is profoundly satisfying. I mean, football and the NFL is the sort of largest American sports by far. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit gladiatorial. It's a little bit like some people have called it the church of the gridiron. You know, this is like very, very American. And the question is, how, you know, do your athletes actually interface with what it is that you're asking of them? And of course, in football, it's very complicated, and basketball, like with what Phil Jackson does and George Mumford, you've only got 5 of your guys out there on the floor at any one time. You have, you know, sort of 11 offense, 11 on defense, lots of backup players. How do you actually maintain a certain kind of intentionality of coherence when everybody's job is absolutely different?
And interdependent.
Totally
Completely interdependent.
Mike, can I say about, you jumped right to the word of love here, and if you care so much about something or some people, and you truly, at your soul, care, then you're going to do everything you possibly can to help them be as fully, as best, as protected as you possibly can. Well, that is the right word, ultimately. I don't talk about that. You don't hear me. I'm not talking about that on ESPN, and that's not the conversation. But where the connection comes from is truly, I need to care that much so that I can see what needs to be seen and felt what needs to be felt and hopefully communicated what needs to be communicated and directed and all of that orchestrated so that people can operate to the best. I just want what's best for them, and I know we all get the good stuff if that's the way we go about it. So we're, I think, uncommonly committed to the relationship-based culture that we've created because we know that's the best for our people. We want to put them in that environment. We want to keep them there and hold them there until they just continue to elevate, and it just moves its way through all of the moving parts. And so it is with love where that comes from. It's kind of a parenting type of a love in a sense, and for hopefully the right reasons.
And there's a key phrase inside of that, which is a relationship-based approach. And so the thing that happens in football is football, and it's rugged, and it's hostile, and it's an unbelievably challenging game, both from a coaching and a player's perspective. And then in all organizations, there's people, right? We're not robot-based yet, and so there's people. And the people, the center of the asset is the human experience. And the relationship between the two is so fundamental to helping people know their belonging, to be connected, to have a relationship first with themselves so they can have a relationship with others. And that would be at the essence of, I think, the heart of your question.
And so how do you train people in that? How do you train the offense? How do you train the defense? How do you train, you know, each element to actually do their job, but know that they're part of the larger whole moment by moment by moment?
I think your group probably is really well informed to understand if we're right here, right now, that gives us the best chance to bring everything we have to that moment. So we have to find a way to stay connected into that skill that we're developing. And so we do that on a moment-to-moment basis. And everything that I can see available to us to give us the chance to get tuned in so that next step we take, the next word that comes out of our mouth, the next thought that we have is directed at what's right there. If I can keep them there, I know I'm doing the right thing. And we need to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it as we develop the repetitions that it takes to develop the skill so that no matter what's going on, you can see us operating just like we're ready and prepared to do. And so, Matt, how do you do that? Every single moment and every little thing, whether we're listening to music, whether we're listening to somebody tell a story, whether we're watching the film, or it's a repetition at practice, or playing a game, or a moment at halftime. We need to find that skill that makes us uncommonly able to focus in that kind of manner.
And the way that we think about this is let's just talk about mindfulness for a minute here, is that there might be 2 pillars that we like to think about: awareness and awareness of thoughts, the body and emotions, and the unfolding environment, if that would be the first pillar. And the second would be insight and wisdom. So what we just talked about was activating the training of the first pillar. So it's culturally grounded in the humans, and then talked about relentlessly in ways that it just permeates for pillar 1. And then pillar 2, insight and wisdom, you know, one of the beautiful contemplative trainings is who am I, and to sit with that.
Fundamental.
And so that in and of itself is asking somebody for who is their philosophy. What is your philosophy? Who are you, and how do you guide your life? Mm-hmm. And that's a central question that goes to every coach on the team.
Let's take a moment. Let's ask them.
Yeah.
Everybody out here, I'm sure, is working really hard to do really well, right? Would you agree to that? You're working really hard. And most of you feel pretty successful. Raise your hand if you feel successful. Okay, you're doing pretty good. Okay.
There we go.
Let me ask this question. to be really good at something, you've got to continue to be good at it. I mean, just to do it once, to win one Super Bowl doesn't mean a whole lot to me. You got to come back and get there again, win it again, and that's the challenges that we live with. Well, just like in your business or your work, you want to consistently do well. So, let me ask you this question. How many people out there have a philosophy that guides their life? Just raise your hand. Okay, look around, hold your hands up. Oh, that's awesome, look at that number. Okay. Now, of those people raising their hand, how many people could tell me what it is in 25 words or less? Keep your hand up. Yeah, we just have a few people out here. Oh, this is a pretty good group.
That's a switched-on group.
This is a switched-on group. Yeah. Well, we don't care about your philosophy, okay? We're not going to ask you. But for you to have the chance to be the best you or whatever you're doing, don't you think it would help? And I'm going to coach you for a second now. Is it okay? We can coach you? Yeah. Don't you think it would help if you knew exactly what it is that you felt was important in your world? That you had the collection of things that you believe in kind of in order? If for no other reason, so that you could take that which you understand about yourself. So one, you would know it. That's a powerful thing. But also so that you could share it with the people that work with you, or the people that are in your family, or the people that you relate to on a regular basis. See, if you don't know who the heck you are, how could you help the people around you act in accordance with you, particularly if they represent you? So we find it so crucially valuable to go through the process of the self-discovery so that you can get in connection with who you are and what you're all about. And that never ends. We never get that. We just keep working at it. But once you work to find that and get closer to that, you start feeling a little bit better about yourself now. You might not even like it all, but at least you can act in accordance with who you are more consistently. And if you're going to be really good, you got to know how you did it, so that you can recreate it. See, my thing is not about 1 year, it's about how many years can we put together where you can be really good at something. And look back down the road and say, wow, we kind of kicked butt there now, we did pretty good. The one stops when you hit it. Everybody can do that sometimes. But you can't get there without the insight and without doing the work to figure out what it is that's so important to you, so that we can come back.
Coach, you did win the Super Bowl. And that was like, obviously came with a huge amount of euphoria and good feelings, and like you did win it all and succeed. And then
I think I know where this question is going.
So let's just stop right there.
Yeah, should we just leave it at that?
Right, John?
Yeah, that was fun.
That's exactly what was
enjoyable.
The attempt to repeat next year, completely beautiful all the way, and in the last second, it went the other way. And I'm interested in that moment, on camera, you were caught in a place of integrity, it felt to me, that you were not going to fall to pieces because it went this way rather than that way, even though it was a gigantic moment. And that's really why we played the game. But again, you just said this is not just for 1 year or one success or 1 year where you lose. And is that loss even a failure in some sense? Or is that just a natural part of not only the game, but of life itself? And then you're back for another year. And how does that integrate in your life, and how do you hold it in that kind of embodied way? Is that a fair question?
Oh my God.
No, it's a great question.
Oh my God. Go ahead, Pete.
Whether it is, we're answering it. Whether or not, we're answering it right now. Let me say this before.
There's one little thing. I really want to hear how you're going to answer this because it's intense. But there's something that you said is that a gigantic moment. And this is something that Pete has one way that he's going to describe something, and I'm going to have another. And the way that I articulate, just picking up on that language, is that I say that there's no such thing as a big moment. Let ESPN talk about big moments, defining moments. There's no such thing as a big game, a big play, a big half. There's this moment. This is the only one you get. This one matters as much as anything else. And so if we can take that path, then it creates a way to dissolve pressure. Now, why is this relevant? Because Pete will talk about it almost the exactly opposite. He said every moment's huge. This is the most important game. It's the most important practice. It's the most important
And if we watch you on TV, we see that coming through the television.
Okay, but let me back you up on that, because where I will say it that way, as Mike says, we agreed absolutely in that the moments are the same.
The moments we get to the same place with it.
It's crucial.
But it's consistency.
It's crucial for us to perform at our best, to understand that we we have control of what's going on. And those things that we do control, we're going to master. The things that we can't control, we're not even going to mess with it. I don't know how much you guys are able to do that in your world, but the discipline that it takes to focus on that which you can control is so much more powerful than spending any time, any focus, any energy on things that you can't control. Well,
relentlessly so. Yeah. Yep.
To go back to the answer, let me say two things that I think are really, really interesting. One of them is, no matter what happens at the end of that major event, that game, if you win the game, which we did, it is loaded and laden with pitfalls and distractions and concerns that you would never anticipate until you have to go through it, that you have to deal with and you have to manage and navigate your way through so that you can get back to what, like we're talking about, what you're capable of being. And we saw all of that. We lived right through that in extraordinary fashion.
After the win.
Seattle couldn't have celebrated it better, and we had the time of our lives. You come back around, you go through the entire season, and we get all the way to the final moment, and then that opportunity totally escaped us just in a heartbeat. It is in that moment, and I said to you, John, in that instant, before I even was able to stand up, I already knew what I was dealing with. It was like my life cavalcaded in front of me what was going to come next. And it was the opportunity to take the next step in truth and help everybody that was going to go along with me to make the max out of this opportunity, to take it as far as we could, to understand and learn and grow and work in the direction that we could possibly go in to make us great again. And so the moment began when I stood up. And then it was to the media and the team and the fans and all of the following and all of the questions and all of that. But the essence of that is, and how do you do that, is dealing with the truth and getting to exactly what happened and what took place. And then putting it, it's just like we do every Monday of a football season. It's Tell the Truth Monday, let's figure it out. So that now we can move forward. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean that you don't have all kinds of criticism and an avalanche of issues and all that. You all watch that. But it is how you decide to do it. And that's the moment when I have my best chance to perform. Am I really real or not? Am I going to be able to show that I can understand what just happened? I can get clear with the moment and not have this flurry of things going on and be focused to deal with it in the way that I chose to deal with it.
Well, in some sense, that really is the wisdom pillar. It's embodied in that moment.
And it begins for us with being quiet and listening is really important. Listening is so important that it's one of the pillars that you'll hear the coaches talk about is learn your learner, listen deeply, be present with them so you can understand them. That goes back to love. The second piece is once you have some connection, it's likely that you'll get to some clarity, truth. You'll get to clarity. And then from that connection to clarity, then you have the opportunity to live with some conviction. Mm-hmm. And it's the conviction that allows you to be tested when the big lights are on or there's no lights. Like, are you consistently able to go back to the clarity of who you want to be?
It's a skill. I really believe it's a skill that you learn how to do by practice.
You can exercise the muscle.
Exactly. You practice how to. Let me say this too. We have a thought, and I know that it probably is talked about in this group sometime, talking about grit. Grit is a major concept to us. Grit is a concept that we learned, we've been practicing it for a long time, didn't understand it until we met up with Dr. Angela Duckworth. And she taught us some language that helped us understand. We're developing a mentality in our culture that allows us to live in passion. We open up the doorway we want to be passionate in the world that we're in. We know that those that are most capable here persevere like beyond normal people. They can hang tough. They can get through it. It's because they have this ability to be resilient. They can bounce back and things don't bother them the same. They're just stronger at dealing with the issues. And with that, there's this ongoing sense that you know you're going to succeed if you just keep staying with it. All of those aspects of our mentality come into play at a time like when you're challenged. When you're challenged to win it all, when you're challenged and you just lost it right in front of you. How are you going to deal with it? You go back to those same characteristics that now keep us in connection with the fabric of who we really are. So you've got to know who you are. And we're not talking about a gritty person. We're talking about a gritty franchise, a gritty fan following. Our fans respond. I can't believe how they come back. They keep coming back. The Hawks or something. There you go. But there is a makeup to that. And if you have a makeup that that you understand, then you can share it with the people, and you can elevate. This Angela Duckworth didn't know that if you could elevate grit, but we have learned, we've showed that, and she now doesn't think that way anymore, that you can help people become more passionate and learn how to persevere and understand what it takes to be more resilient. And so that is all of the makeup. Where do you go? How do you do it? We go right back to the root of who we've been pounding when things were easy, when we were in camp, in summertime, in springtime, when we're working. We're teaching then the whole time the principles so that when it comes into play, bam, and we can click right back in.
Practice, practice, practice.
And practicing the inner game and practicing the technical game, and which is a nice segue to this thought. I think that it's easy for us in sport to talk about craft and the craft development and becoming masterful at craft. And it's also equally as important to honor the importance of mastery of self, the inner experience. And it's through craft, it's through the dedication to craft that we are attracted to the other side of it, which is the mastery of the inner experience. And when that takes place, now watch this, in the transitions. So it's masters of craft play in the transitions. They play in the space between. And you can take that as many ways as you might like about the space between a breath, the space between thoughts, the space between. And so great performers or craftsmen, we're watching frame A to frame B to frame C, but what they're doing is frame A goes to 8.1, 8.2, 8.13, and they're just playing.
And a running back is doing that moment by moment by moment, finding the spaces.
Sure. And we would like to think that people in the corporate world do the same. We don't want to think that's anything different, because you're performing who you are in the same sense. So why would it not apply? And we don't only think that it confines itself to the business world. We see it in families, we see it in relationships, we see it. You have a chance to perform all the way through, and if you have skills and if you have a really clear mindset of where you're coming from and who you are, then you can work your way through to becoming really well equipped at being you and being your company or being your boss or being that person that's trying to work their way up.
So you're in a position, because you are the Seattle Seahawks, to actually teach this broadly and widely to
Wisdom
boys,
2.1.
to all sorts of people who would be inspired by this particular message. And I would sort of ask you, because we've been spending time here really looking at the shadow side of our own work, like not all mindfulness teachers are ethical, for instance. There are all sorts of people who don't walk the walk, so to speak. They talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. So the NFL, of course, is facing a huge number of challenges in itself, with everything from, sort of the chronic traumatic encephalopathy to the domestic violence issues, to all sorts of things that might be called, say, the shadow side of the NFL or sports or anything like that. How do you, in some sense, see that and hold that in terms of young boys coming up who want to play football? I loved playing football when I was young. I played football all the time. I see football, the beauty of it. When you play as a boy, you just actually embodied or feel how beautiful it is to fade back and pass, or to catch the pass, or to block, or whatever. That it's like ballet, and at the same time, so that you've got beauty on the one hand, and you have a certain amount of pain on the other hand, or challenge. And how do you hold that in terms of the larger society and the beautiful, in some sense, the beautiful framework that you just offered us that goes way beyond, in some sense, just the winning and losing of
I think
football.
Jennifer was just addressing, about boys, and she's done a marvelous job of studying. And
exactly.
These are just issues of people. They're just young people that are trying to find their way, and they need all of the help we can get. We honestly feel like in college and in the NFL that our guys have differing levels of their development, differing levels of their own nature of how they can present themselves in their best light and all. And what we try to do is we'll try to help them and fill the voids and be there to support them, to catch them as they're moving along. And we show them the areas where they can improve and the areas that they're strong at. And that's part of trying to help them be the best they can be, so that they can deal with issues and things that the nature you're talking about in a really good, wholesome fashion. And we just like in parenting, if you support them and give them the things that they need, they're gonna still make their mistakes, but they're gonna come back from their mistakes with guidance and an order, and hopefully an understanding that will allow them to develop and get way stronger. So I don't think it's any different than that, John. I think we're gonna look at them like they're our own. and they're our own children, and what would we do to help them make the next step properly so that they can be where they're capable of being and where they could go beyond. And so that's not just support and just holding them up, that's kicking them in the butt.
Yeah, it's
that's
support and challenge.
It's all of that.
Through
we have to
times.
we have to cross the entire spectrum of challenge and rigor and all of the things that they have to deal with. But we also want to love them through it too as we can, because that keeps us connected so we don't miss the holes and the spots in there that, that we may miss otherwise. So it's the way we look at it, though.
And I'm not sure that that there's a big difference between sport and larger organizations. And because we're relationship-based in everything we're doing, this conversation is relationship-based, that when we get the relationship with ourselves right and others, it becomes an amplification for whatever the output is. And so investing in the process, which is the person, on how they relate to themselves and others, warts and all, then that becomes, we think, one of the greatest accelerants to the outcome.
Jon, I'd like to present to, this is such a cool group of people that they're so capable and they're into it and they're trying to get better and all. I would be curious to just ask this question, that in your own world where you work, whether it's your business or whether it's your family or the groups or the clubs that you're involved with, how much time is spent really trying to help the people around you be better than, the best they can be? How much time do you actually invest in those that are around you with the thought that you're going to, in any way that you can, help them be better? And I ask that because we see that we have this organization of people that we work with that have this extraordinary power to do so many things. They're so capable. They're just gifted in so many ways. If we can just get them out of their own muck and get them to where they can function well and they don't have the concerns that are going to draw them back, the issues that have always pulled them back, and keep looking for this extraordinary uniqueness that they have in them. And then try to celebrate that uniqueness to the point where they feel like, wow, these people understand, they care. They actually care what I think and what I feel. Now, I don't know if that's the way it is in your business worlds or your family worlds, but if it was like that, when people sense that, I've watched it so many times that they just elevate, and then everybody seems to fit off of one another in a way that, I know it sounds maybe like too good to be true, but it ain't too good to be true.
But you've used that word several times, elevate, and I really love that. And I think that in some sense, we're all in the process of elevating, if you will, the game, or elevating each other. Elevating, because it goes way beyond. I mean, even if you are a professional football player, sooner or later you're going to retire, okay? Because you can only play for so long, and the body does take a lot of abuse very often. And that's true not just in football, but in lots of other areas. So what about life after the game? Or what is the real game? Why do we even watch football at all? Maybe it's sparking something very deep that is what you're pointing to, that goes way beyond just what's happening on the gridiron itself, but the lessons of possibility, the lessons of being who you actually are, and taking that as far as it can be taken as an experiment to just see.
We would hope that the skills do transfer. Not always do they, and there's a big transition. I know for athletes and people leaving their corporations too, there's a big transition that takes place. And I think that's where they need to be helped along to get through that so they can rebalance their footing and start to move forward in a good positive. But there's a time there where it's shaky. But we do think that it goes back to the fundamentals. If you have good fundamentals in shape, then you can draw on them. But that's why I think everybody kind of needs to be coached.
That's right, and that's why
everybody needs to be helped along. We do. We all do.
This room.
Yeah.
Because this is a collection of people from all around the world who actually know what you're talking about from the inside, because it's a practice, as you said, it's a skill that needs cultivation, and it needs ongoing cultivation, and there's a certain element of passion, because it's only the hardest thing in the world to string even 2 moments of presence together, whether you're a football player or not.
Right. So there's, I want to ask one quick question. I'm sure we're getting short on time, but there's so much to learn from people that excel in rugged and hostile environments. Because if you can't become present in those moments, you're hurt or damaged, or so there's so much for us to learn from how they have naturally done it. So we're learning as well on how they naturally do it, and then creating enough of an awareness within them to celebrate who they are, which is what Coach is talking about. And the question I want to ask is, how many of you had somebody in your life when you were, maybe it's just a kid, maybe it was junior high, maybe it was older, that they just absolutely got you and you wanted to be great around them? If you're fortunate enough to have one, okay, not everybody has that person.
That's right.
And if you didn't have that person, then what Coach is asking you to think about is, can you be so present and mindful that you get who that person is? Because this is the decoding of why we wanted to show up, why there was a draft to show up to be great around them. And now you can think of a leader or a great friend or a husband, is that when what they did is they got who you were and they dropped in somehow what was possible for you. And you said, oh. And you just wanted to be around them because they understood at the essence of who you were and what you wanted to do. We call that creating a draft. There's no pushing in the Seattle Seahawks for people to be great. There's challenge. But it's creating a draft where they're compelled to want to be their greatest because the celebration of who they are.
Explain draft a little bit. You mean like draft, like it pulls you in?
Literally a draft, like
bike
cars or draft,
on
or you open up a door and you're compelled,
right,
like pulled in.
You're drawn into it.
Yeah, which is
that's
go back to love.
That's the love.
Go back to love, right? And go back to the insight required to see who somebody is, have them nurture that part of them as well. And so that's like the second pillar, if you will.
So in some sense, your athletes get seen by you.
Ooh.
They get met by you.
I like
100%.
In our team in particular,
we'll try to at least.
In our team in particular, we have half of our team are free agent players. That means half of them are drafted and half of them have come from the hard way. They've had to make it through the ranks and all of that. And we've found by locating an individual maybe that others didn't see something special in, we've been able to capture them into the program and watch them just flourish. And it's not always the most skilled, the most gifted that take it the furthest. We've learned that. And so we're really loaded up with a lot of guys that have a big chip on their shoulder. They got something to prove. They really live in this world of grit that we talk about and where those characteristics are so prevalent. But it's to say, okay, here's your chance. Go. Yeah. Show us what you can do. And we're going to be excited about you when somebody else wasn't. There is great power there. And that's why I think in your worlds of business and stuff, and some of the bigger corporations that we talk to, we know they're loaded with people that have this marvelous talent that they're sitting in a darn cubicle and nobody knows they're there. That's what kills me, because that's the potential that you could find there. So we're in that business of trying to figure that out, and we compete to do that.
So we're in the last few moments of this time together. Is there anything that either of you would like to say that we haven't touched on that sort of arises in this moment for you?
Go ahead, Mike. Wrap them up.
Oh, wrap up. Wow. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be working with people that are switched on and are deeply engaged in wanting to be their best. And I'm grateful for you. For providing that runway for so many people, myself included, to learn, to grow, to be valued. It's a wonderful exchange. And John, I've learned so much from you, and so thank you so much for hosting this conversation.
Yeah, just to say, too, that there is so much power in this room. I can't even imagine what you guys are capable of doing and with all the things that you do. Yeah. And it's thrilling to be part of it. Thank you so much for letting us
We're all going to show up at training camp next
Come on down.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.